Got a job as an accountant straight out of uni, and I reckon within the first few days of being in that environment,
what have I done?
that was the thought. I've made a big mistake here.
And we're rolling. Mr. Pat Chirico. How's it going?
Going really well.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
It is, isn't it? Thanks for helping us change rooms. We just spent the last 20 minutes. Pat was supposed to come in for a podcast, and he's helped us take all of the gear from one room and move it to another room because I wanted a river view. So don't judge me. But dude, just want to say, really excited to have this conversation. Obviously, you and I have worked together for the past couple of years, and I met you through my wife, Alice, who's sitting behind the camera over there. But yeah, I feel like the reason why I wanted to have you on is because the work that, you know, obviously you were working with me inside our program helping men, but then over the last 9 months you've actually helped me through a transition. And we were kind of speaking off camera, kind of talking about, okay, cool, what's the kind of angle that we really want to go on? And we really spoke about how transitioning was really something that you're really excited about, and that is kind of like the pocket. Would that be accurate to kind of say that's the kind of like the pockets you're really excited about or enthusiastic about helping people? I know you run events all around the world. Where did you, just for the listeners, like tell us like a little bit about yourself so that we can understand some context. What was we can go deep into more childhood stuff later on, but just to give us a quick snapshot, like what were you doing as an adult, and then you transitioned to now, what are you doing now? And tell us a little bit about, you just got back from Europe, you know, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I started my professional adult career working in the corporate field.
I'm a big boy.
Yeah, I'm a big boy now. Got a job as an accountant straight out of uni, and I reckon within the first few days of being in that environment,
what have I done?
that was the thought. I've made a big mistake here. But I didn't leave.
Yeah.
Because it was too scary to leave. It was a good job. It paid well. It looked good from the outside. My parents were proud of me. So, of course, I stayed for multiple years. But that whole time I was there, I could feel this like gnawing inside me that there was something else I was meant to be doing. And there was a deeper purpose, a deeper meaning. And I kept ignoring it.
Yeah.
Kept pushing it down. But as you know, you can only push it down for so long before that pressure starts.
Life has a way of bringing it to the surface when we don't listen.
And because like the fact that I wasn't listening to that, and I was ignoring that voice within, like the amount of anxiety and depression and frustration I was feeling, it was unmanageable to a certain degree. And I'm really grateful I got fired from that job.
No shit.
Because,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's been keeping that secret.
I actually kept that secret for a few years after as well. Wow. Like the shame around it.
Wow.
But I didn't have the courage to leave. And I realized in that moment where I was fired that like to make that leap, courage finds you after.
Yes.
I was never going to have the courage. I just had to have the balls to actually make the leap, but I wasn't going to do it. So getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me realize what it takes to actually make a transition in life, that you have to jump first.
Yes.
That it has to be born from a place of faith, even if there's no evidence.
Which is contrary to, and I'm guessing that the lesson you got there is because you didn't do it that way. You learned the hard way. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like you didn't use faith, you used unconsciously fear to stay there. And then the universe, God, whatever we believe, something had a bigger plan and said, okay, Pat, if you're not going to take the reins here, I'm going to force you. Is that what you kind of feel happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I got pushed to a place close to rock bottom, if not rock bottom, and had to go there because I wasn't willing to take a jump. I ignored all the signs.
And just for the listeners, in case people have these types of things going on in their life right now, like what were the signs to you? Like what was kind of life like on a day-to-day basis? What were you dealing with? What were your relationships like? What were the impacts in all of the kind of key areas? Yeah,
in terms of just me day to day, I'd wake up feeling like crippling anxiety. I didn't want to go into the office. I tried to think of 1,000 ways I could avoid going into the office every morning, and just felt sick in my stomach, like as I headed in, and then all day long, this constant like fear and this pressure. And because of that, I couldn't perform at work. And then that led to feelings of guilt and shame because I was worthless and I wasn't a good employee.
So would you just freeze up?
Absolutely. Yeah. All the time.
You couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate, and therefore just couldn't finish the job that you were getting paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember
what age were you, by the way, doing this?
I worked in that field between 21 and 25.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was pretty young to be in that environment. And then from a relationship perspective, like I was pretty miserable to be around.
Yes.
Like I'm very lucky.
I can attest to a plentiful of people probably saying the same thing about me when I was hadn't yet done the work.
Yeah. So I'm surprised my then girlfriend, now wife, stayed with me through that period. Very lucky that happened because I remember getting home some nights and just going straight to bed, not wanting to talk to anyone, not wanting to be around anyone. Just felt miserable, heavy, like physically, like the weight of the world was just pushing me down. And that wasn't the job itself that was creating that. That goes back to the fact that I was ignoring like the path I was being called to from within. And I was suppressing my needs.
Which at that point in time, you didn't even know what that meant.
No.
Had you done any like personal development up until that point?
None.
Nothing.
Not a thing.
So you're a noob.
Noob, yeah. I started going to the gym as a way to take the edge off some of the anxiety and the pressure I was feeling.
And I think a lot of people, that's where they start. They go, I used to ask clients like back when I was doing the PT stuff, do you meditate? Oh, I run. Like, what's that got to do with meditation? Like that, of course, that helps with your mental health, but they're very different things in my mind. Like, they both help. The meditation helps with the fitness and the fitness helps, but it's like, they're kind of...
Absolutely, yeah. The gym was a positive coping mechanism.
Yeah, and better than getting shit-faced.
Absolutely. There was a fair bit of that.
Which is what I was doing. And going to the gym.
Actually, that was what I was doing for the first half of those 3 to 4 years.
So numbing.
Yeah, numbing. Like between Thursday and Sunday, just sort of trying
Uni style.
Yeah, pretty much. Just trying to forget about it all.
Yeah.
Which took a toll. But relationship-wise, I was pretty miserable to be around. And I had a really bad relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Because I was wearing a mask every day, being someone I didn't want to be, living for other people's ideas of who I should be. I was really frustrated at myself, and there's a lot of inner resentment during that time.
So you were were you kind of hating yourself for not having the courage to make the change? Is that
absolutely?
Is that kind of what you're feeling?
Yeah. Like I was living for everyone else's needs.
People pleasing.
Yeah, that's been a big one in my life.
Where do you think that stems from, people pleasing? Like, and you can speak on either for yourself or just for people in general. Because I think a lot of people, some people would probably know some people, if you're not into personal development, you probably don't even know what people pleasing is. On that point, what is people pleasing? Why do people do it, in your opinion? Why did you do it?
For me, why I did it, it was a need to be loved and accepted. That was the biggest reason of all. And even to project a certain image of myself out into the world that was going to be loved and accepted.
I'm a good person.
Yes. Yeah. The big one was I'm a nice guy.
Oh, dude.
And
that one really fucked me up for a long time, trying to be a nice guy.
Yeah. That was, I'm a recovering nice guy.
Yes, I love that. A recovering nice guy. Now he's a fucking asshole.
It is. It's rough. And there's a good sort of alumni of recovering nice guys that you can turn to now to support you. But it was 3 big things. Like it was like the nice guy in me was playing small.
Yes.
Because he didn't want to take up space and ruffle any feathers. If everyone else was
all right. You
want
everyone to feel comfortable, and if you shine your light, whatever that might mean, even change jobs, well, that might make my parents feel unsafe, or, what I want them to see me in a certain light and be a good son. Well, a good son, either unconsciously or consciously, is you playing out the role that they want for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't want to let my co-workers down who didn't really like me anyway because I was underperforming and sort of wasn't even there. So that idea of...
Interesting how your ego snuck in there and thought, I'm not leaving because I've got to look after everybody else. It's not because I'm afraid. It's because I've got a responsibility to my team of people who don't even like me. I think that one's. It's funny how sometimes, yes, it is our fears, and then sometimes it's like it's also our good excuses. It's funny how the survival part of us can really.
Oh yeah.
It's like really, it knows us better than anybody else. It can tangle us in so many ways that just trap us in the hardest way from doing the things that we feel like we should be doing, but just don't feel like we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that survival mechanism, it's got its claws deep, and it had me for a long time. And I still get caught in it every now and then.
You're human.
Yeah, absolutely. But outside of playing small, like for me, when I was really struggling with this like nice guy syndrome and trying to take that mask off and make this change, there was those elements of like having no real boundaries in my life as well. Like perpetually saying yes. Like that's the people pleaser. Always saying yes when he means no. And never having the courage to say no. And as a result, it's just giving yourself until you run yourself into the ground.
Doing what you think you need to do for everyone else, but never truly helping everyone else move forwards, but not being able to move forwards yourself because either your energy's drained or you feel like you can't, because if I give myself this, then that's actually taking something away from somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what that felt like. If I take from them,
yes,
they won't like me.
Yeah.
They won't love me.
Because you're really underneath doing all those things. A slight caveat, but just to prove the point, I tried, and it's a beautiful part of my marriage now, is that I really have a good goal and I'm lucky enough to have a partner that also has the same goal, but I want to be a good partner. But some ego snuck in there for me, and I got called out on it by an ex partner. I think I like made lunch for her one day and like brought it into the city, and one day she's like, I was doing this for a while, and she kind of said to me, I said, I do all these nice things for you, you're never fucking happy, blah 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 blah. And she said, she was younger than me. She like called me out big time, and she said, you don't do that for me. You do that for yourself, because you come in here and you look like you're the boyfriend of the year in front of all of my co-workers. And I was like, my ego was like, she's caught us. I had no idea that that's why I was doing it. I actually literally believed that I was doing it because I was a good partner and da-da-da-da-da, which is, part nice guy, still at the time, as many years ago, probably 15 years ago. But that's where I first, I didn't know about shadow work then. I didn't even know what the ego was. All I knew was that I saw a version of myself of what was the driving force behind me doing something that I had never seen before. And it just, you obviously resisted initially, but then over like a period of time, I'm like, do I do it for that? And I started kind of inquiring within myself. I'm like, fuck, I think there's a part of me, not all of me, but I think there's definitely a part of me that's doing this because I want them to look at me as the identity of the good boyfriend in front of their, anyway, side caveat. But
no, it's a good side caveat because for me, like it was that realization that this nice guy in me, this people pleaser, like he had a hidden agenda.
Yes.
Like,
sneaky little fuck. Yeah. He thought he was nice. He was a conniving C-bomb.
Because it is in a way a form of like manipulation.
It is. Not with any ill will agenda. No. It's with the agenda of obviously just it all comes from, as we discussed before, a survival technique. Because if I'm not loved, I get kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly a way to truly be happy, thrive, and the show's called Make Men Great Again. It's certainly not a way to be a great man, is it?
No.
So you're recovering a people pleaser, as you shared before. You're playing these roles out in your life and your relationships and your things. It's very toxic for your own personal health and well-being. You've started to really get stuck in work and not feeling like it's your tribe and whatnot and not liking it. And so you've used exercise as an outlet at that point in time.
Yeah.
So now we're at present day of that moment. Like what's been your I guess, to go back to my first question, to be where you are now, which is married with a child, I would say somebody who's very masculine. I'm not saying you're walking around with Arnold Schwarzenegger's arms, but what I see as masculine as being someone who takes action, someone who's conscious, somebody who's a good father, a good leader. We've all got things we can work on. Nobody's perfect, but you've got this. I mean, this is what has really helped with my healing. You've got this very grounded masculine, not this hyped up masculine energy. And for the people who are watching this podcast right now and don't know what masculine and feminine energies are, we're not going to go into a masculine feminine masterclass because I've got another guest that we will do that with. But you can Google masculine and feminine energy and you'll find out a bit more. But so what's the gap between there and now?
Yeah, going to the gym, and that grounded me a lot. That connected me to my body. Like,
Got you out of your head.
Absolutely. There's nothing that gets you out of your head faster than the potential of being crushed by a weight.
Yes.
So it was helpful in that regard.
And coming back every day, even though, so you're building that inner mental strength as well.
Yeah. And those moments of like connectedness, those moments of presence, I think started to reveal to me something a little bit deeper. And even if they're only fleeting between sets, going back to the car, like I could just feel there was a shift there. And that led me down effectively a rabbit hole of wanting to know like what is happening in those moments.
Yeah,
like, why can I feel a change? And then I wake up the next morning, get back to work, and it's all gone.
How can I have more of that?
Yeah, how can I have more of that? And that inevitably let me find meditation, download the Headspace app.
Yeah.
And that was my first foray into going, okay, maybe I need to work with my mind a little bit as well. And the first meditation was fucking terrible.
It's funny that you say that because one of my early guests, Dave, he was saying he just beat cancer, and he was saying that it was all stress related. And I said, do you meditate? And he said, I do yoga. He said, I've struggled with meditation. Like it's hard. And I'm like, that's why I was curious to see what you said, because I think most people don't realize, they think it's supposed to make you feel better. Initially, it's like anything. When you start a new job, when you start dating a new girl.
All right. Hope you're enjoying the podcast thus far. Just want to take a moment of your time to ask that in exchange for this amazing value and guests and hopefully some entertainment too, if you guys have liked it so far and you want to see more, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. At the end of the day, you can continue just to watch and all those type of things, but it does actually have an enormous impact on the level and quality of guests that I can have. And that just means better interviews for you guys. And it also means more impact in the world. The more men that can come across this channel and see this information and see the types of topics, the things that we're talking about, that can change another man's life. So if you've got value, pass it on. Pass on that value by hitting the subscribe button. With that said, guys, let's get back to the episode. Bye for now.
When you have a baby, anytime you do anything new, it's going to be uncomfortable. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to feel so much peace. No, the peace comes after you do the freaking work. Same thing when you're going to the gym or you start the results come after, actually doing the thing enough that you can start to learn how to be better at it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to clients now that skill of meditation, it's building a muscle just like you'd build a muscle
at the gym.
In the
Biceps.
gym. It needs reps and reps and reps. And you're going to be sore the first few times. It's going to suck the first few times, but you adapt.
Yes. And you have to keep the goal in mind and not let the ego come up with excuses like, oh, maybe I haven't got time for this, or maybe this, maybe that. It's like the mind will come up with all of these different ways so that you can protect yourself from being uncomfortable. But all of the best things on the other side of discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what meditation did for me. It allowed me to be uncomfortable because I had to face my thoughts and my mind.
Yes.
And
all the things you've been avoiding and wishing that weren't there, now they're right in front of you.
They were right there. And they didn't stop for those 10, 15-minute practices. It's all I could hear. It was all the noise just coming up nonstop. And that sort of led me further down the rabbit hole. Well, how do I get past that? And that was breath work. Yeah. That was the next step. So it was just this thread of curiosity that I kept following.
Your journey sounds, by the way, just so you and so smooth. Mine was like just a rocket ship, it just all in on something and then like partying and then, getting completely depressed and then not being willing to do it and then doing it again. Like I think, and that's the cool thing, right? Everyone, don't judge your journey. of getting there. Some people it takes 10 years, 20 years, some people it takes 5. Just keep the end in mind, have unapologetic goal about and this I'm curious, because for me, I'm very goal oriented. Did you have a goal of like, I want to be this way or I don't want to be this way? Or were you just, and I'm going to hate you if you give me the wrong answer, or did you just naturally, organically go through the whole thing?
I didn't naturally go through the whole thing. So it was more I was running from something.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah. I didn't want to go back to where I just came from.
Yes.
It was like, that was the last resort.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel like that again.
So you weren't thinking, I want to have this amazing life, I've got these big goals. You were thinking, I don't ever want to feel like that again. Something's got to change. I can't continue going like this, and I'll do anything that it takes. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah. It was the pain of suppressing myself so much that I couldn't, it was too much to sort of fall back into that trap and to put those masks back on and be someone I wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was more running from something rather than towards something, which changed over time.
Yeah.
But at first it was definitely that. Like the pain was the driver, or the avoidance of going back into that painful place was a driver.
I think it is a lot of the time. Like it's been such a long time that I've been doing this work for, and it's still going, I'm still doing the work, but it's certainly gotten a lot easier, and I don't need to do as much anymore. But it's hard for me to even go back sometimes and connect with how bad that. I know it was really bad for me at times, but I think in recollection, if I think about it, yes, at the start, you're so far away from even wanting to have good things that all you care, or I found myself and clients, and which confirms what you're saying, is you're just thinking, like the way I have described it to people sometimes is like, imagine plus 10 is you're the best version that you could ever possibly be, like potential, and we don't have to be perfect, but whatever. Then you got minus 10, which is like you're suicidal, and then there's like neutral. And I think at the start, depending, you'll fit somewhere on that scale of like minus 10 to plus 10. And if you're neutral to minus 10, you'll typically have pain as the main motivator, because it's like that's the thing that's just right in front of you. Once you're kind of neutral, then the next stage is usually, okay, well, I don't have huge amounts of pain in my life. Sure, I can fix some things and some other things would be better if I improve them. But I now have goals and kind of I want to use the work not just to heal, so I don't wake up and want to just drink myself stupid today or end things or just that I can't cope, but that something else out there is calling me, and I want to be the best version of myself. And so I think different people find themselves at different parts of that, but. So you would have classed yourself as somewhere. Where would you have classed yourself on that scale if we were to scale it?
A solid -8.
Okay, so pretty.
Yeah, I was pretty down in the dumps.
Down there.
Yeah.
And how long were you there for?
Well, it's funny. I was actually reflecting on this the other day. Like I always say it was that 4-year period in the office, but that's actually not true. Like if I think of how I was feeling back then,
not the circumstances, but just the internal.
Yeah. Like that feeling was there through university. It was there through high school, like feeling lost, not knowing if I was going in the right direction, feeling quite isolated and alone. Like it's permeated through my life. Yeah. And I think being at that -8, like I had to be there. Like sometimes that pain and discomfort is important because it let me put my foot down and say enough. Granted, my boss put his foot down first and said enough and kicked me out of the door. But from that point on, that was the catalyst to realize, oh shit, I don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
And I've got a choice here. I can just find another job and this same pattern will 100% repeat itself again. Or I can just try and effectively just take a step in a different direction and see what happens. I mean, it can't be any worse than this, could it?
And going back again just to that past guest that I was talking about, Dave Gelbart, the one with cancer, he had a similar situation. Not that necessarily he lost his job, but he got cancer. He had the signs and for years and years and years, but he felt like he just couldn't. He had 4 kids, a wife, and just felt like he couldn't stop, and then ended up getting cancer as a result of that. And I think, this is my personal belief that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, that there is a higher consciousness of some nature, and that it is orchestrating it's orchestrating stuff, right? And you get that quiet voice, that little nudge that says, hey, I think you should make a change here. No, I can't. And, you ignore it. And you ignore it only so long until it says, listen here, mother effer. Either you'd make a change or I'll fucking make it for you. And then suddenly your boss sacks you. In David's case, he got cancer. He had to get cancer.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to preface that anyone who's had cancer in their family, I'm not trying to dismiss, and I'm not a cancer expert. I know a fair bit about health and whatnot, but I'm talking specifically about David's situation. But it took him getting cancer to make the changes that he needed to make, that ignoring him, even to the point, get this right, he's not a spiritual person like us. He said 3 months prior to him getting told by the surgeon that he had to, that it was a tumor in his chest and he had to get it cut out, he literally turned to his wife and said, I feel like there's something in my chest and I need to cut it out. Word for word what the doctor told him 2 months later. So he intuitively already knew exactly what needed. His body told him word for word exactly what needed to happen to heal himself.
Yeah.
Isn't that no? Don't you think that's incredible? I mean, I'm a believer in this stuff because I've just had so much evidence of it in my own life, and it's really served me. People say, how do you know now? Look, I just know because these are the certain things. You have to go through your own experiences or at least be open to exploring them. I mean, that's the point of the podcast, is to expose people to different ideas that in their friendship circles or work circles that they might not be exposed to, so that we can have great men who are great fathers, great leaders, great husbands, and then we can have great marriages, great kids, great companies, great society, grateful. Anyways, so going back to what you were sharing before, you weren't listening.
No.
And it's put this in front of you. Do you live your life differently now? That's what you were kind of saying before. Now, do you wait for things, or how does somebody discern when they're getting this little download like Dave, or how do you discern what's just a passing thought, a thought's anything, or an intuition which is saying, hey, you need to make a change here. Hey, you need to step up here. Hey, like, how do you know, and what's your process for then actioning that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I definitely subscribe to what you're talking about. Like, the universe will force you if you don't take that step.
You're going to get there. You can either get there pushing, kicking and fucking screaming and have your whole life fall apart in the meantime, or you can buck up, listen, and take action. Yeah.
And for me now, it's a process of when I get that subtle nudge, okay, I need to check in and listen. I'm not waiting. But
what is that nudge? Is it for you? Like I'm speaking, imagine I'm someone who's watching the podcast right now. I'm an everyday guy. I have no spiritual, because a lot of people could be PD, personal development, but they don't have a spiritual connection. Yeah. We're talking about intuition here. We're talking about accessing things and knowing how to discern between what is just a thought, which is your head, and what is some other part of the universe somewhere that is a consciousness that is not just your mind telling you, because it could just be a fear, it could just be a thought. Like for me, it's clear as day. I've got a connection to that thing now, and that's what you're sharing, and we take that for granted. It's obviously worked to that, but how does somebody who's right now thinking to themselves, I don't like my job, maybe I don't like my marriage, maybe I don't like my weight, but they just have not done anything about it? How do they know what is a nudge? What does that feel like? What does it look like for you personally, or for your clients, for instance?
Yeah. For me, I sort of come out at two directions. And one, I work a lot with helping clients really understand what is happening beyond their thoughts, beyond their external world, and actually tap into like that emotional material that is driving it all within them.
And how do you do that?
And that's primarily through meditation and breath. Like using the breath to bypass the thinking mind and actually tap into the body where that emotional material lives.
So like the quote, quiet the mind and the soul will speak, which is kind of what was happening during your exercise a little bit as well, but just differently, right? So
absolutely,
you're doing an exercise or an activity, you shall say, that is allowing you to number one, regulate your nervous system. Because when you're exercising, the reason why you actually end up having those stillness moments is because what do you do when you exercise? You breathe heavily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah,
When you
absolutely.
run, when you do exercise, you breathe heavily. What happens? Your nervous system regulates, and then suddenly your mind's a little less busy. And you, instead of you being tuned into what the fuck FM, and just woe is me FM and everything sucks FM or whatever it is, or I've got to do this, got to do that. It's like that TV channel's kind of like switches off, and we're able to access that other kind of channel. So you're a breathwork facilitator, and you also do spinal energetics. We've also got Sarah Jane, who owns the spinal energetics. We've got her coming on the podcast tomorrow. So I'll save some of the spinal stuff for her. But the same premise is true, right? Where you are slowing down the mind so that you can hear that quiet voice inside. And so that's what you're saying is to listen to the nudge. You're probably not going to be walking down the street and be struck by lightning and go, oh, this is exactly what you need to be doing. What you're saying is find stillness through practices. Like it's just like a step-by-step system, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We need stillness and silence in order to be able to actually hear what is happening. And for me, like being able to bring clients back into their body where they're holding that emotion. And emotions are often like ignored and pushed away in modern society. Like logic.
We don't want to feel them. This feels I don't want to feel this.
No,
I've got to do something today. I can't feel this right now.
Yeah, but they're such a high form of intelligence. Their feedback from the nervous system, they are our first language that we communicate through.
So if I'm feeling anxious, what's that? And again, a lot of this stuff I know, but I'm asking you to really again, share that conversation for it to really ask more so the questions that the listeners would probably be thinking, well, hold on a second, what every emotion is feedback? That's bullshit. We'll probably get a bunch of stuff in the comments. So what is the feedback that our nervous system is giving us when we're feeling anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety from a spiritual lens is trying to highlight a great misalignment in your life, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional.
Hold on, let's turn one up. I think it's this one. One of these has a hold on, there it is. We've got some claps happening here. I don't know if that worked or not. But anyways,
I was wondering what they were actually.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's brilliant.
I don't know why I can't hear that more loudly. There we go. Yes. I've always wanted to do that.
That's so funny.
Actually, I'm going to leave that up and we'll use that one for later. If Pat drops another bomb, a bombshell here, we're gonna test out a few of those pads.
Cool. I'm okay. Pressure on.
In fact, you can pick one next time, okay, Pat?
Perfect. Thank you. So me realizing that was like a game changer for me.
That's why you got the claps.
Yeah. So it was
not
actually
the claps.
The claps. Very different topic.
Much more enjoyable.
And like seeing it through the lens that it was actually trying to help me.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
It's not trying to fuck up your entire life. It's not there to hurt you. It's there to help you.
Yeah. And most of the emotions we run from and avoid, if we lean into them, they're actually trying to push us forward.
Let's play a quick game.
Yeah.
I'm going to name an emotion.
Okay. All pressure's on. I'm ready.
Oh, you're on, baby.
Yeah.
If you get them all right, you get to press the button.
It was this one, wasn't it? Just to make sure.
Well, you can test up. There's some other ones. There's some crickets there, so make sure you don't say anything shit. Sadness.
So for me, sadness is an opportunity to reflect on particular attachments that we're holding on to so tightly, things we have to perhaps let go of, or parts of the past that we haven't fully grieved yet. And from a more practical lens, I often see sadness or even leaning into unhappiness as a gap between the story in our head and what reality is presenting us. And the greater degree that gap is, often sometimes the more unhappy we are because we're trying to orchestrate reality to look a certain way to make sure we're happy.
Yes.
So there's a chance there to actually examine, what am I holding on to? What attachments? What stories? What part of me do I have to grieve and let go of in order to move through this heaviness?
So as an example, let's say I have an expectation that I should be somewhere in my life and I'm not there.
Yeah.
I call that the unhappiness gap.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you have a perception that you should be here, or a perception of someone else that they think you should be somewhere. And So that's for the future type stuff, and that can create a level of sadness of I'm sad that I'm not where I want to be and I don't have things I want to have, or in the past, things of failures or setbacks where you expected things to go a certain way, a relationship ended, you didn't want it to go that way, so you felt rejected. So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And with sadness as well, and like that deeper element of sadness, which is grief, it's on the same spectrum, just further down.
Yes.
Where we're not skilled in handling grief. We don't know how to move through it.
I love what you just said there, the word skilled. In my mind, I'm like, and again, agree or disagree, that's the point of these conversations. I think all of this is just skill. It's what was
100%.
so fucking, I'm going to give myself a clap here.
This one?
Yeah, go for it. What was so amazing was realizing, geez, it just keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, what was so amazing was realizing that it's not that I'm not enough. It's not my past. It's not my parents. It's not any of these things. These are just skills that I never learned. I never learned to be a father. I never learned to be a business. I never learned to be a man. I didn't know what it meant to be any of these things. And a lot of times we don't have good role models because our parents are just doing the best that they can. They probably copied off other people. And we won't go into the whole parenting thing. That can be said on another time. But, you know, I've got a mate and his dad, like he said to me, what, you didn't go running with your dad every morning before school and he taught you about this? And I'm like, no, that would have been nice. And it's not like a victimhood. He's a very grounded masculine man. He's a friend. I have lots of friends of mine in different ways where I look at them and I'm not jealous. I love the way that Pat's like this. I'm going to be a bit, I love that. I'm going to be a bit more like that. Not to manipulate myself or just qualities. And he's just got such a great quality of just what I think is just a really kind of good example of what a man is. I didn't have those. Going back to that, just the claps were for just realizing that testament to what your word was, skill. Yeah. It's all just a skill. Yeah. Every single skill. Everything just comes down to a skill. You don't know how to meditate? It's a skill. How do you build a skill? You get educated from it and you practice it. You can learn about soccer in a book. You're not going to become good at soccer until you start kicking the fucking ball. Same thing as business. Don't cry about. I mean, it's understandable if your expectation was that you're going to do well in business or in soccer, but then you're met with reality, and then it's like, okay, well, cool. The cool thing is that it's not because I'm not enough. It's not because there's so much. I don't know if that you feel the same way, but there's so much hope in that for me, or for the past me. Like now, I feel like I've learnt this kind of principle, so I find things so much more easier. I don't have all these blocks anymore. Yeah. But going back to what you were saying before, so it's a skill.
Yeah, like working with your emotions, even cultivating that mental discipline as well, whether you're working with your thoughts, it's all a skill, just practice. Yeah. Like we said earlier, it comes with reps. And to your point, like it's true, like where were you shown how to do this?
Never.
Schools
don't show you.
Like my parents love them to death, but they weren't equipped with these skills to pass those on. They gave me different skills, but not these ones.
Isn't it silly? I mean, isn't it stupid how, and a lot of people will probably relate to this, especially, isn't it crazy how long schools have been just getting away with just teaching absolute rubbish? Like, seriously. I mean, how are you not learning about, how are you not reading books on marketing and business and relationships? Like, it's just so nuts that the most important things that will impact. How are we not learning about the subconscious mind in high school? How are we not learning about not just how to be healthy in the PT classes, but like really understanding like brain chemicals, stress, and all like the things that impact us the most? Shouldn't they be?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about why they don't teach us in schools, because they don't want us to be the best version of ourselves. They want us to be in our lowest vibration so that we can be more controlled. But going back to your thing, so I said sadness, and your short answer is
letting go of attachments.
Letting go of attachment. Okay. Yeah. Depression.
Depression. It's the mask that we wear to hide who we truly are. This is to quote Jim Carrey here. Like, it's your body saying "F you."
Yeah, I've had enough of you.
Yeah,
You
for
haven't
not being
treated
who
me
you
well.
truly are. Yeah,
The word that comes to mind, which is something that when I look back on my life that really stands out, is self-abandonment.
yeah, absolutely.
It's like truly abandoning the truth of who I am. And that goes back to the people-pleasing point. And it goes back to the point of Dave, who was on earlier, about just this feeling like I don't have a choice. I have to.
Yeah,
Even though we've got this other feeling like I can't do it, it's like I don't think a lot of people realize how many options that they have.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Or that they feel afraid to look weak.
yeah.
And you do get these books like they come out, like Jocko Willink or whoever, talking about grit and all these different things. I think discernment's such an important thing. When is it me needing to step up and raise my game here and push through? When is it? And sometimes it's discerning. When is this message coming through that this is not a time to push through? This is a time to be still, to listen, and to realize that I don't need to push through to prove myself to myself or to anyone, to prove my masculinity, which is a big one for me and for a lot of men. There's nothing to prove here. And it's only in my mind when we quiet the mind. So it's only my perception when we quiet the mind that we are able to have that discernment. Otherwise, the emotions push us up into our head, which is into our survival response. And in that, it just feels like it's impossible. And if you're feeling it like life's impossible for enough days, it's pretty likely that you're going to disassociate, pretty likely that you're going to use drugs, alcohol, porn, anything to just not be achievement. Even over-exercising to just not feel the things, and we run away from those emotions. So what you're saying, Pat, is you're saying, hey, fuckers, don't run away from those emotions. That the obstacle is the way.
Absolutely.
As to quote, who's the author?
Ryan Holiday?
Ryan Holiday,
Yep.
the Stoicism guy,
Yes,
right?
that's
Marcus
him.
Aurelius, all that jazz. The obstacle is the way. Amazing book. We need to grow through what we need to go through, blah, blah, blah. So you're saying, okay, cool. And this is what you do. You do breathwork facilitation, which is what Pat's originally was working with us in our program. And then you've gone from that. You're doing meditations as well, which we were speaking about the other day. You've got this whole bunch of different meditations that you can get online. And then right now you do spinal energetics. But all three of these, spinal energetics, breathwork, and meditation, the same. They're different tools. One's a screwdriver, one's a pliers, one's whatever, but they all get you out of your head and back in touch with truth. And sometimes that truth is uncomfortable, right? So that's why we avoid it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because like once you tap into that place, everything you've been running from, everything you've hidden away, like it's there. You have to look at it now. You can't run anymore. And
some people's truths are actually, like, some people are being lazy. Some people are not. The reason why we hide from that truth is because sometimes the truth hurts. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not nice to face yourself in the mirror and go, man, like I need to pick my game up in this area. But the cost of not facing that is staying with things being the same for another for another year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's like you future pace that out, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this meditation.
yeah, absolutely. Like it hurts. You're right. Like when I was faced with that truth, like my ego took a beating that day. Oh shit, I actually don't like who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not a good partner. I'm not a good worker. I'm actually really lazy. I'm like, that all coming up, I'm like, this is not fun. I would like this
My
breathwork journey to
expectations
stop.
are not in alignment with no wonder I'm not where I'm at. I'm expecting myself to be winning here, but I've only put in this much effort.
But there's a moment where we can speak to like ownership and responsibility, where in that moment you can finally take ownership. Okay, cool. This is all my shit. This is where I'm not aligned. This is why I feel anxious and depressed every day in my case.
Yes.
And from that place, like that energy of those emotions can be transmuted and create energy to move into a different direction.
Yeah. Is that kind of what you were talking about before, where, and I find this a lot, where that energy builds up inside you to the point you get angry.
Yeah.
I'm not, and the line in the sand moment kind of, so I'm never going to fucking do this again. And you get, I think anger can be a powerful emotion as long as it's channeled in a healthy way. I'm not saying to go aggro at the person who cut you off or at your partner because she, forgot the milk or something like that. I mean, at yourself, channeled towards being angry, not at yourself, but at the pattern and at the situation and going, fuck it, that's like, this is it, never again. That's a very powerful, it's a powerful emotion.
Yeah. Anger facilitates change.
Do you ever get angry, Pat?
Yeah.
What sorts of things do you, here we go. What sorts of things does Pat Chirico get angry at?
It really has become more of an internal thing.
Okay.
Like it's always been,
You don't strike me as someone who would ever get angry at anybody else.
unless I'm watching sport, I find I can get pretty loud and angry at the TV
Yes.
during those times. But outside of that, it's more finding that anger in me, that I'm angry at myself, that I've been misaligned or I haven't acted in my truth. And then with obviously family always knows how to push your buttons. They installed your buttons. They know exactly where to go.
And family loves to push them. Like they
Yeah.
get a general joy out of just poking. I mean, I'm speaking specifically about my brother right now. He just gets a general joy out of poking. It's his fun.
Yeah. But that anger.
Love him to death.
Yeah. Again, that's on me.
Yes.
Like,
As a reflection of the skill that you have yet to acquire, or the trigger that's covering up the trauma that you're yet to heal, that is getting triggered by that. Because you line 10 people up, they could, and let's say I poke them all in the chest 10 times, really hard, because that's so annoying. Every single person's going to act different. One person can punch me straight in the face.
Yeah.
The next person's going to get really insecure and feel really really close up to their shell. The next person's going to start yelling and getting angry. The other person's going to, what have I done? And like every single person's going to, the same circumstance, same trigger, but different response because of the person and their own kind of stuff. So you went on a journey where you were learning these things for yourself. You obviously went through your own healing journey, and then you started to facilitate these journeys for others. But before we get into that, I just want to quickly touch back on, we spoke about transitions at the start. So you transitioned, just to backtrack a second, you transitioned from, you got sacked. And what were you feeling when you got sacked? This sucks.
oh, yeah.
Now all the things your parents, thought you were proud. Now, what was it like? They didn't know? You said before you hid it for everyone?
I hid it for years.
For years?
I told people I left. I quit.
Oh my God.
Because there was so much shame around that.
Yeah, wow.
And again, I had to maintain that image.
Yeah.
Like, Pat's a nice guy. He's got a good job. He's always happy.
It certainly doesn't. It's not in alignment with your identity, Pat.
No. So it was too risky to say that I got fired. It was too embarrassing. And I didn't want to have that, deal with that
So
shame.
you just swept that under the rug, pretend like it didn't happen, told everyone a lie. And then I know you were a PT for a while. So, so your transition, you transitioned into doing personal training. Was that what you did next?
Yeah. When I got fired, I had no idea what to actually do. I'd been going to the gym for a little bit. I liked it. And there was like a PT school.
There was a massive branding push.
There was at that time.
A few years ago, the PT, get a job and you don't have to work in a corporate role anymore. You can make lots of money and help people doing what you love.
Yeah, that was sold a bit of a lie there.
Like 90% of personal trainers were out of a job in about the next. I think the statistics were, because obviously I did it for a bunch of years, and I think statistics were that within the first 12 months, like 60-something% had quit, and then within another 12 months, like it's basically it's like the same stat, and just because I think a lot of people. This is my perception, but a lot of people got into PT because they liked fitness.
Yeah.
But to be a great PT and to get paid for it, it's not about whether you like fitness. That's one part. It's about whether you love people.
Yeah.
You're going to have to spend a lot of time with people. And usually it's a bit like the hairdresser. You're going to hear about their kids, about their wives, about this, about that. You're going to have to work with their mindset to get the results. So you're going to, it's just like 40 hours a week of just counseling people on how to be healthy. It's the exercise selection is the easiest, most mundane, that's the baby stuff. It's the personal stuff that people really need the they're helping. And that's why I think a lot of people go, oh, this isn't what I thought I was just going to give some people some exercise and have a bit of fun. Like,
Yeah.
people just are resisting,
Even coming to the gym. And that was a sort of on a side note, something that also sparked my curiosity as to working with transition and change.
Yeah.
Because when I was working in a lot of group classes and they would all get nutrition plans, but it was just sort of a stock
Generic,
standard. Yeah.
Plug and play.
And I kept thinking, why can't anyone,
Stick to it.
get a result? Like most people come to a gym actually don't achieve their goals,
99%. Yeah.
which I thought this is strange because we've got all the support in the world here and they can't actually even begin to elicit any change in their life. Then realizing there's something must be going on a little bit deeper that I'm not privy to right
Yes,
now. And
yes.
that was part of also that curiosity to go, cool, I need to look into this a little bit more. But for me, it was what you said. Like I was interested in training. I enjoyed it. And it felt like, which has become like a little, I guess, ethos to me now, like the obvious next step.
Yes.
I didn't know what change had to look like or had to be, but that felt like an obvious step. So it was the right step for me to take. And it's something I always ask clients now, because when we think of change, we can project the end goal, which feels like it's 1,000 steps away. And it usually is a bit of a journey
I had a
away.
small habit of doing that, being hyper focused on the end result, which is important.
Yes.
But then it completely overwhelms you with what needs to happen. You get excited for the first week and you write out a plan and then you realize, wow, there's a lot to do here. And then you just, fuck, this is too hard.
Yeah, because it's so scary for the nervous system to go from where you are to that end goal. Like you'll just sabotage yourself.
The gap's too big. So what you're saying is, okay, cool, have that in mind. But right now, what's the obvious next step?
Yeah, and I always ask myself that question from that day. I remember leaving the office and thinking, what's the next step? And the PT school was right there. I'm like, that's probably the obvious next step.
Yeah.
And it's become a question I ask myself all the time. And then when I work out what that obvious step is, I always ask myself, what is more obvious than that?
Wow.
Because that's so simple to do. There's almost no resistance in my nervous system to do it. That's like when I reached out to you the other day to go through a few things. I'm like, that was an obvious step.
Yeah. Just reach out to Scotty.
Just reach out to Scotty.
Yeah.
I've
And then Scotty did
Got his
you on a
nut.
2-hour complete absolute NASA masterclass. I'm the complete opposite. I'm not the obvious next step. I'm like a wacky wizard who's just, completely neurodivergent and just mapping out the secrets of the universe in one call. Sometimes I get to the end of calls where I'm coaching and I would because I go in, so I'm so connected in those moments and just of service, and I feel like a channel and things are just flowing through me so powerfully. I don't even know how I come up with half the stuff sometimes, and I get to it and I go, and I kind of come out of it, and I'm like, I almost feel like a bit jolted, like, wow, what was I just? Was that too long? Was that and I've had to really get okay with just calming myself down. Have I said too much? Like the ADD, did I just, and it's, it's just it's an interesting feeling. It's an interesting place to go to. Anyways, sidetracked. So where were you?
Yeah, so just on that point, sending you that message to just get some help with a few things.
Correct.
That was the most obvious step in that moment. There was no resistance. Get out your phone. I'm on it anyway, just doom scrolling. I might as well text Scott while I'm here and get some assistance. And that was easy to do. And I think when creating change, working with your nervous system and knowing what you're actually working with, it's a nervous system. It's in the name.
Yes.
So
its sole purpose is it's going to be nervous. Don't expect it to feel like rainbows and butterflies. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's a great, just to add to your thing of the next obvious step in the nervous system. People don't know much about the nervous system. As Pat said, the system in your body that controls everything from digestion to your heartbeat to your brain to stress. It's affected by there's the stress and the cortisol. That's the stress chemicals, and then you've got all the other hormones, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and all of these things impact the nervous system to go from either a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, or into some of these more elated and positive responses like love and peacefulness and things like that. To paint the picture, and if we don't have If our nervous system either isn't resilient because of past trauma, which we can heal through certain practices, but if it's not, then small things feel hard. So you've got to build up the resilience and the flexibility of the nervous system. A thing that really helped me, because I was someone who, as we just shared, like kind of had that all in, all out kind of method and was just go ham on stuff. I had to and then I would have like meltdowns and get stuck. I'd go into fawn response, and I was fighting, I was flighting, I was freezing, I was fawning, I was all of them, and just, in the fetal position after attempting to do things. So I'd get overly excited. What really helped me is to understand, like the gym, what you're saying, the obvious next step is a small stretch. That's going to the gym if you haven't been for a month or 2 months or 6 months, and you're not hopping on the 100 kilo bench press, which is what I would do. Even when I'd go running, I'd see the physio, I'd just go out and run half a marathon just because I felt like it. Not realizing, might go to the physio and my body would be cooked, and he goes, Scott, what did you do? You need to build up your fitness. I just felt I had so much energy. I just wanted to run. I just get excited. But going back to it, so stretching, not straining.
Absolutely.
So the strain is where your nervous system isn't quite ready yet to make certain leaps. And what used to happen was is that I would make these big leaps. I'd feel excited in the moment.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the principle. Again, it's not tactics, it's principle. I didn't understand the principle, stretch, not strain. Didn't understand the principle and knowledge around nervous system. So I would go and I would think, well, I feel good. I feel excited, and go take some action. But then next morning I wouldn't feel excited. And it felt really, really far away. And then I would just shut down. Yeah. So what you're saying is do the next obvious thing, something that's not going to completely trigger the, in sales, they call it sales resistance. Yeah. You're not going to trigger the sales resistance within yourself.
Yes.
Because you're selling it to yourself. I'm going to do this thing. Yeah. You're not going to trigger the sales resistance in yourself. And you're just going to do a small, obvious next step. How do you know what that obvious next step is? Do you need to, again, use practices to tap into that? Or do you think after, initially, for people who aren't yet as in touch with their inner self? Or like, what do you feel about that? Or was it just literally it was that obvious that you don't need to connect into that space?
You can definitely take time to connect to that space.
If you're unsure.
And perhaps the mind's trying to pull you away. But for me, it's been a practice of like literally getting out a sheet of paper.
Yes.
And breaking things down until I just reach a point where I'm like, okay,
where am I at?
I can do that.
Yes.
Or even getting someone who can act as a mentor or a coach to help you discover what that might be if you can't see like through the fog of your own mind.
If you don't know the next step, get someone else to give you some help to not necessarily hold your hand, but just they've got the skill of that. If you go back to the skills again, if you've never set a goal, if you've never transitioned into a new field, if you've never done something, like when I became a father, first thing I went, and I was not coping well with some facets of the fatherhood, which is mostly, particularly the noise of the crying being high sensory. First thing I did was went out and got someone to help me through, train myself, but also learn the skills of that. Now it's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that speaks to the idea of like the environment that you're in. Sometimes you feel like you're stuck, and there's people who are willing to help, who are further along the road than you are. Then perhaps you have to leave your environment to find them and leave that sort of area of comfort to find them, but they're there. And that's a bigger topic of like men actually seeking men as mentors and elders.
Or even women for some cases. I've worked with both women and men. Why do you think people, and I spoke to this with someone else before, like why for you, in your experience or in your just intuition right now, why do you think men don't do that? Because I agree with everything you're saying, and I think the only way to make men great again is truly get educated on how to, on the areas that we're not, connect into, get out of your head, get into your body and connect with your spirit intuition so you can understand what decisions need to be made, face your truth, and then get some help either from a brotherhood of men, from a friend, ideally someone who is actually successful in their life, not necessarily financially, unless that's something you want to do, but why don't men do that, in your opinion?
I think for me, especially when it comes to like seeking out like a male mentor, I had a distrust of the masculine growing up because I grew up with a lot of men in close proximity physically around me, but emotionally very distant.
Yes, closed off.
Closed off. Couldn't open up. Quite a stoic sort of appearance. So for me to actually tell another man how I need help, I'm struggling.
That's
here.
just like you'd never seen that before.
I've never seen it. It doesn't exist.
Yes.
And
so there must be something. So not even that it wasn't trained to you, but it wasn't trained. Like, do you feel like just because you hadn't seen it, did you think it was a bad thing? Did you, like, if you psychoanalyze yourself for a second, do you think that you had a belief system that it was weak?
Yeah, I'd be considered weak. And that man would judge me straight away.
Did anybody tell you that, or did you learn that like a bit of an animal learns by watching other animals?
The first time I ever saw it was I actually attended a men's circle and thinking that was going to do a meditation or a breath work. And that's what it really was. I had no idea what I was getting into. I just saw it and thought, all right, next obvious step.
When was this?
This would have been late 2016.
Oh, well, that's a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was early on in the transition. And I sat there thinking, okay, let's just meditate and I'll leave. And then every man started to share something about their life that was so deep
and vulnerable.
And when it got to me, I couldn't even speak. I was shocked that there was men in the world who actually spoke like this. And it floored me. And I just, I mumbled a few things and just looked to the next person. And I left almost shocked and almost probably traumatized. It's probably too much too soon in that moment for my nervous system to handle.
And strained your nervous system. Not stretched. Holy shit, I just got put on the spot.
Yeah. But I think that moment highlighted to me that it wasn't weak to be vulnerable.
So that kind of put, Tony Robbins says the belief is like a table, like this table here, where the belief is the actual top and the thing that strengthens the belief is evidence, which is the legs of the chair. And so when we have a disconfirming experience, like you had a belief, men don't share this type of shit, it makes them weak. And if they're weak, there's shame and you're not seen as masculine and all these other subconscious programs, right? Then you've gone to this event and there's how many men were there?
There have been 15, 20 men.
15, 20 men. Would you say that they looked appearance-wise like masculine men, or they look like very feminized men?
No, most of them look like very masculine men.
Yes.
Like a lot of them were my height.
Very masculine.
Yeah.
So they're not super feminized men. And now they're opening up about stuff. And what age were they, like as an average? 25 to 35, 40 to 50?
Big range from my age at the time, which was 26, all the way up to probably mid-50s.
Okay, so you've got men from all ages, masculine-ish type men, and this has just completely pulled out the legs from underneath that belief, but you weren't ready to handle that yet. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, holy, that's not happening. This is not happening.
Because I've never seen it.
Yes.
Like dad and uncles and other close friends, like no one ever spoke like this.
But it was enough to make you curious, and kind of it was like the thread that you kind of, maybe I'll just pull on that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and this was what I mentioned about, like sometimes you have to get out of the environment you're in, because I didn't know that existed.
And that's what this is for.
Yeah. If I stayed in that environment around those people, who a lot of them I still see and still love, but it would probably not be where I am today if I didn't expose myself to something new.
Yes.
To a new environment of men who were actually doing things a little bit differently.
Well, some of the, everyone says these types of things. Oh, yeah, the law of averages, you're some of the 5 people. It's a great meme or quote, but it's like, that's so fucking true.
So true. Yeah.
You are literally like the sum of the 5 people, because it's like these are all the normalized things. So there's a study that was, if one man gets divorced in a group of men, within the next 12 months, 5 out of 5 men, if one gets divorced, out of the next 5 is the next, I think it was 3 next, I can't remember, don't quote me on this, it was either the next year or 3 years that 3 more men will get divorced.
Wow, there you go.
Now, I don't know if that's because they see the other guy running around having the time of his life, or whether maybe he's not, but it's courageous. I'm not encourage anything, or I think everyone's in different situations, but it's a phenomenal thing. Same thing with overweight people. If you're just a little lighter than your friend who's very heavy, well, you feel okay about it. But if you hang around a bunch of slim people, you're going to feel pretty bad about how you are, and it's going to naturally motivate you unconsciously, without anybody saying anything, to want to be healthier. And okay, cool. So you just put a crack, law of averages. you just started to decide that maybe I should get into some more situations where.
Yeah, well, it was a weekly thing in that circle, so I started going every week, and I never spoke. They didn't know how.
No shit.
Like for months.
But you just kept
I was
showing
just
up.
a mute in that room. Because I didn't know how to actually put words to how I was actually feeling and what was there. But just listening and having that belief every week.
That's really courageous. I just want to say, man, it's really courageous.
Thanks so much.
Like,
I appreciate that.
There's been times where I've gone to stuff and I'm just like, it's too much. I'm just not coming back.
Yeah.
And I just don't, even if I paid for it, you know. And again, I'm talking about earlier in the stage, but the fact that was like one of your first exposures, and even though you felt like probably the most afraid you've felt in your life, that you had enough courage to just, and vulnerability to just show up anyway. Imagine the mic getting passed. Now, not me today again, guys. Like that to me, my ego would have been way too big for that. I couldn't be seen because I wanted to always, I felt so insecure about my masculinity. I wanted to always be seen as the really masculine person. Yeah. And I fought nail and tooth to prove that externally. That would have just, I wouldn't be able to handle it, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes of the environment that was created. Like when you're with those type of men, like you're met for the first time with no judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
And even that's a shock to your system. Like, why aren't they judging me?
Yeah.
So you start judging yourself to make up for the lack of judgment that you're receiving.
Just start a little judge cycle.
Yeah. So that was helpful in that regard. But if I reflect on it, I think being able to show up every week and sort of find that courage to do that does go back to actually being fired and realizing I have to step first to find courage.
Yes.
Because that was the one time I didn't take that step. And then the universe came and clipped me by getting let go of. So, yeah, I said it before, but I am tremendously grateful that that lesson from that moment I got fired landed.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to repeat that. Because I'm sure if I ignored it.
Just keep this laughing because it's like, I have to learn the same lesson like my wife's looking at me like probably 5 to 10 times. Or in the past, I've gotten a lot better. I don't have to learn it as many times. And there's other areas
in my life where things repeat again and again and I have to learn. But that was
let's expose them now.
Let's expose them all.
But in that area at that time, you got one lesson and that was enough for you. And you're like, okay, cool. I'm not gonna wait anymore for permission, and I'm gonna act next time. Is that kind of the wisdom that you got from that?
Effectively, yeah. Like not waiting for permission or not waiting for the right time to come.
Yes, the right time. Yeah. That's a big one for a lot of people.
And that's something when we were chatting the other day that we spoke about. Like it's not the perfect time to act on a certain thing, but just do it anyway. And that goes back to faith.
It goes back to that. It goes back to that. Just, I mean, for me, every single thing just comes back to get out of your fucking head.
Yeah,
get out of your head.
Pretty much.
Because that's where you can logically write down all these things on the paper and da-da-da-da. But when you close your eyes and you get, whether it's going out in nature and go for a hike, whether it's even if you're not willing to start with meditation, that's not the next obvious thing for you. And you're not yet doing exercise or walking or something, just go and do something, right? But get silent, get still. And in that moment, ask yourself those questions and you'll be surprised. I'm not speaking to you, but the listener, you'll hear another voice most likely. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if you don't hear. It might quickly go, and be logicalized in your mind. But I'd be surprised if you get still often enough. If it doesn't happen the first time, don't judge it. But everything you're saying, so it just comes back to that. And that's why I think meditation, breath work, spinal energetics for me, I mean, I do the meditation every day. That's literally saved my life. And I try to do the spinal and the breath work once a month, which is that kind of reset.
Yes. Yeah.
And I find that very, very helpful. Or when I'm trying to really move through a transition, I might do it more often because I know more shit is coming up because my nervous system's like, whoa, change. This is scary, which is why we started this little deal. I think I messaged Pat and I'm like, he's doing the breath work for our group. And I think I messaged you and I said, hey man, like we're both new dads. I mean, we'll have plenty to talk about that. But like I'm doing this transition and I feel like I really need some more support. and my nervous system needs like some more help. And we set up a little deal where we would just trade. I was doing some business coaching for you, and you were doing some, healing for me. Which, I mean, like I said to you, like you are one of the most gifted people I've ever met, and the grounded, masculine. You're just such a non-judgmental person. Like I feel like I can. That's what makes these conversations. I feel like every time we talk, it's just so easeful.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's no masks, there's no nothing. And it's been absolutely beautiful, really building this working relationship. And then off the back end of that, like it's really, the word I've been using lately, which is true, not and I shared this with another friend of mine, enriching.
I like
enriching.
that word. Yeah.
It's very, because there's people in my life, I've had some terrible people in my life in the past, really, toxic people. And Ellis and I both, kind of became a little bit of hermits, and we love each other and we spend so much time together. And we said we want to make an effort with our friends and family to really cultivate friendships. And as I've been doing that, lo and behold, you put a bit of effort in and I found certain relationships so enriching where I really leave it and I feel, I just feel so great about that relationship. I know it sounds I mean, maybe that's what people have felt in the past. I've never felt that before until the last kind of couple of years, as I've really put myself out there a bit more, instead of just being head down, bum up with work and trying to make money and those types of things, really going, hey, like I think this is the next obvious thing for me that I've made some money. I've got a wife, I've got a child, I'm doing pretty well, but if I was to, what's the next obvious thing I would like to have in my life? Where's that intuition come? And it was like friendships, relationships, community. That's what, and I'm still looking. I mean, part of the reason of starting the podcast as well, besides sharing interesting conversations and for people who don't have that environment, like you shared, was also just to have more connection with people instead of sitting behind the computer screen and coaching people, but having more. That's why this is face to face.
Yeah. And how important for that, I think it's a need, it's a human need connection, but especially for men to be connected to something within themselves, and that is perhaps lacking to a large degree. It was lacking in my life, and that was a source of misery for a long time.
So if we were to go into, making men great again, without going into the other side of things, which is like, the big kind of worldly stuff of like what makes the name slightly controversial, without going into that stuff, because I mean, just feeling this really kind of present, grounded conversation. So let's just stay there. What, in your opinion, like do we need to do as men, obviously, to become, just forget the again part, but what do we need to do as men to thrive? And I mean, for me, what I care about is thriving as a husband, thriving as a father, thriving as a leader. In my case, it's business. For other people, it might be in whatever their career role is. That will have the greatest impact that when we're being the best version of ourselves. So for you, what do you think that men need to do in order to thrive? Number one, we've already, to recap what you said, get out of your head, get into your access to that awareness of what that next obvious thing is, to face your fears. You said before, like, don't run away from them. You learned the lesson about take leaps of faith before waiting until life kicks you in the dick, to put it plainly.
And I'm sure we all know how much that hurts. So yes. Leap first.
When life kicks you in the balls, that hurts. Don't wait for that. Have the courage, and seek out people. And now you're saying brotherhood as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I'm missing here?
Well, I love what you started to touch on there in regards to what are the things that really matter. Be a good husband, be a good father, be a good leader in your community. And for me personally, if I can walk along that path, that feels like a great thing to do as a man. And that comes back to being connected to a higher purpose in me, and then being able to be of service. And that can be as simply as being present with my son. Yeah. And nothing else.
In that moment, I'm being a good father.
Yeah. giving him all of my attention and serving him in that moment. And the amount of energy I get back from that moment is
Which, by the way,
incredible.
can be very challenging when
Absolutely.
you run a business and you've got all these other things that are pulling you. So it takes again, it's a skill.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it.
Yes, no.
There's moments I catch myself and I'm like, why am I replying to this email when he's right here? Like, be with him.
Yes.
Like, be a great man and a role model for him in this moment.
So and that's the key thing. And again, I was chatting to my wife about this, but I don't think maybe it wasn't else. Maybe it was I think I had another guest on a few days ago. I know it was my dad. We're going out for dinner. I said, I don't think a lot of men have goals in business. In the years of coaching I've done, hundreds of people I've coached, I'm yet to really find many men that have a goal for their relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are your goals in your relationship? Excuse me. I'm just trying to put food on the table. Well, it's pretty fucking important because your business is going to lose half of it if this relationship doesn't work out. If you really want to talk about, if you just want to be selfish and talk about your own needs, which is not the case, and all you care about is just ego and it's money, well, that wouldn't be a net positive thing to do, especially with the way that divorce rates are going. You probably, that's just from the selfish perspective. From the unselfish perspective, it's about making yourself proud, making whoever your creator is proud. You've been given this body and this life, do it justice. But when you were saying before about your child being present, what stuck out for me is that was actually a goal of yours.
Absolutely.
Clearly,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
I think that's it's easy to sell these things, but the underpinning thing is you have to have these goals. You have to want to be unapologetic, and that needs to be important enough for you. If it's not important, we only make time for the things that are important for us. And I think I see a lot of people, I don't have time. I mean, everyone's got the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
I did a post a while back and it said, what's the difference between a broke person and a billionaire? Sorry, not what's the difference. What do they have in common? Same fucking amount of time in a day. Why can somebody do it and the other person can't? So time for me is not a good enough excuse. It's either prioritized, it's either a goal of yours to be a great father, great husband, great business leader, or great leader, or it's not. And if it's not, do you actually care about that? If not, that's fine. But it's very hard to, in the moment, remind yourself to be present if you've got a higher emotional charge towards your main goal, which is like, to grow your business or to make money or to do whatever the thing. So you've got this goal, you're present with your son and you're reminding yourself, okay, it's in these small moments.
Yeah. And I think for me, knowing that, like that physical and emotional presence, what that creates in him and who he can become from that place with that foundation set, like I'm making a great man in that moment.
I love that.
And that for me feels like the most important work I ever do.
So it's the next generation. So you're saying, okay, this is how we can make men great again now, but this is how we can make men great again. Because what's that quote about the boys and the men? Something about it's a very famous quote. Heal the boy and you'll meet the man or something like that. In this case, just don't make the boy need too much healing, and he'll become a pretty natural man. Show by example.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for me. It doesn't pay too well at the moment, but I'm sure the fruits of that will reward itself down the track in terms of who he becomes. And then that, I think, speaks to a generation of men, and we're probably lumped in that generation where we probably were a little bit disconnected from our elders, and we were with people who were perhaps a little bit emotionally distant. And
again, they just didn't have the skills,
they
by the
didn't,
way. Like, I don't hate my all the things that happen in my life. I'm grateful for them because it made me who I am, and I really love who I am, and I've been able to help people because of that
absolutely,
pain.
yes.
And it's not I've healed a lot with my father. It's not his fault. His father was even worse. His father, he doesn't even know. Dad was just, hey son, no emotion whatsoever. So,
Same with my dad. Like, he didn't have the skill, and his father was even worse than his father's father. It's just a pattern. Again, patterns repeat, and we have the potential through simply awareness to begin to interrupt those patterns for the boys that we are raising, whether it's our own son, even if it's our daughter, or even as a community as a whole.
Even for, I think, to me, like, we talk a lot about men, but I think I'd be nothing without my my wife, and she's helped me become
Yeah.
a better man. No, why? Because I want to be a great man for her.
Absolutely.
I want to provide for her. I've had to become very at the time. I wasn't making the money that we are today. She loved me anyway, and vice versa to her. And I think whether it's I've got a daughter, not a son, right? I want to show her what a healthy relationship looks like.
Yeah.
So that she can choose a healthy man. I want to and raise a healthy son, and I want to have a healthy relationship with my partner as well. Because when the relationship's healthy, I want to be a better man. When the relationship's not healthy, I don't want to be that better man. I want to say fuck the world, fuck this relationship, and I don't want to be. And so I think women play a massive role in that. In this whole mission of the Making Men Great Again. I think I've got a guest coming on next week, and in me talking a lot more about the masculine and feminine and relationships and things like that. But so we've got the brotherhood, we've got all those different things. Like, is there anything that we're missing? If someone's watching this and they want like hey, I'm feeling disconnected, I don't like my life, I'm not happy. Okay, cool. Emotions are feedback. What do I need to do? Breathwork, meditation, these types of things, get in some communities. If we do those things, we're going to become great.
I think we're going to walk the path towards greatness.
Yes.
It's going to create a great deal of change within us. And I think for me, what was fundamentally lacking to believe that I could be a great guy was simply that word belief. I didn't believe in myself. And that was probably the relationship with myself was the one I had to repair the most.
Yeah.
Because it was so fractured. Because I was the only one who heard all my lies. I was the only one who broke all my promises to myself for so many years. And
Wow, that hit. That hit.
And yes, like nurturing my relationships and creating new relationships that supported me and guided me were really important. But fixing that one with myself was the ultimate game changer in my life. And that goes back to, like you said, my wife helped with that to a large degree, because no matter what I was going through, she loved me.
She created a safe, nurturing space for you.
Yeah. And even that was hard to accept. Like, how is this person loving me right now?
Yeah.
Usually I have to perform and wear a mask and have a song and a dance and pretend I'm someone else. But she just loves me for me. And that was almost a disconfirming experience, because maybe I am lovable.
Yes.
When I'm a mess.
Yes, maybe maybe I don't have to be a perfect person.
Yeah. And it was in those moments I started to realize maybe my story about me is the faulty one.
There's the table again, and there's the wife is the disconfirming experience, chops out a leg of the table starts to get shaky.
Yeah.
Now all it needs is a few little kicks and it could fall over, and you could have a whole new belief system, which is clearly what's happened. So you've gone from being a very quiet, a quiet accountant.
Yeah.
Just to really put you in a box, to summarize.
It's literally
that's all
living in
you
a
were.
box.
You were just a quiet accountant. You had no other worth. That, simply put, to now being someone who is running events, who's now on a podcast, who's now speaking about their journey, which is very, the old you would just, the thought of that would have, probably had a meltdown. Do you know what I mean? So obviously this is proof that the healing work, healing stuff really, truly is something worthwhile doing. We're going to wrap up in a minute, but just quickly walk me through, what would you recommend for people? Like, you're obviously running these events, you're running them all around the world. What have you, so I'll answer the other one in a second. What have you noticed about traveling the world? I'm curious, generally, I've been curious about all of this. Have you noticed that people have different approaches or different belief systems? Are they more coachable? Do they get into their intuition quicker? Now, having just come back from like a European tour or whatever you want to call it, like a rock band, did you notice different things in different countries? You're doing the same work. You're showing up the same, a bit like the poking thing. But what were different people's experiences? Did you notice things?
Yeah, I think from a more surface level, the stories they present with and the belief systems they had very different in certain areas.
More
And
environmental to their environment.
yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting for me to go back to where my grandparents were from in Italy and work with some family over there. And they were curious about this work. So we did some sessions.
What were they thinking?
Well, it was highlighting to me where a lot of my blocks were coming from because they spoke the same as me and I'd never met them before.
Wow.
And
That shows the generational trauma.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God.
So, without putting your family, without saying anything negative about them necessarily, what were some of the things that you noticed?
Yeah. Well, a big story for me and a big thing I've had to overcome was like blocks around abundance and feeling worthy enough to.
And for those people who aren't in the spiritual realm, I didn't even know what the word abundance meant until a couple of years ago when my wife and I started. Abundance, everything's abundance. I'm like, what the fuck is this abundance stuff? It was too woo-woo for me at the time. So if we were to just dumb it back to
you could
the
simply
everyday.
say making money.
Money.
And feeling worthy to have that come in.
Yes.
Rather
worthiness
than breaking free from
around,
so breaking free from that scarcity mindset as well, that I never have enough. And then they were just talking about that the whole time.
Wow.
In the words I would use to describe it.
I'm not sure if you saw Ellis's recent reel that we put together. And it's specifically about that.
No, I'll
specifically
check it
about
out.
that. We had a few unfollows, a few people that weren't ready to hear that. But then also, how many views are you up to now? Doesn't know, but it's doing well. But I think that's, her mission is to help Italy with that because they need, they deserve to have help. But it's interesting that you were able to experience that.
Yeah,
as
it was
opposed
a shock.
to comparison. So, America to me, they're the ones that have zero issues, from what I can tell, with wealth and abundance and those sort of things. Then there's Australia. We've got tall poppy syndrome in Australia.
Yeah,
you
we
try
do,
to rise up, everyone fucking tries to pull you down. I think there's still that Italian culture here. Australia, a lot of it was created upon a lot of the Europeans that came out, and I think, a lot of Europeans I know actually make in Australia. They came to Australia for a better life.
Yes,
so it's interesting. Did you notice? So that's what you got in Italy. What other countries did you go to?
So we're in the UK and then in Dubai as well. Dubai was really interesting because there was definitely a major cultural difference.
Yes.
But even with all the differences in all the different places we went to, once we got beyond like the story and circumstances and what they've experienced and into the actual emotion, everyone comes together very quickly.
Yes.
Because
so basically what you're saying, every time you get out of the surface level, which is from the shoulders up, your thoughts, your beliefs, your life, your external circumstances, and you drop into the truth of who you are and the truth of your emotions, which you could be from Dubai, you could be from Shepparton, you could be from Milan or wherever. That's something that we all share, and it doesn't really differ, does it?
No, not at all. And we make a point of that in the event to bring the group together. That I've experienced pain like you have it, you have, and you haven't. I want to experience pleasure just like you as well. And I know what happiness is, I know what sadness is, just like you. Different circumstances, different life events, but underneath that core feeling is the same. And I just want to be loved and feel worthy just like you as well. And once we get to that place in an event, like the whole energy in the room changes very quickly.
Yes. And you're doing breathwork, you're doing spinal there as well?
We are, yeah.
So I've seen people crying, people shaking. Like if you see, I'll put Pat's links below the videos, whether it's this on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. I'll put some links to his Instagram and whatnot, so you can check out some of his work or come to some of his events or anything like that if you want to. But like that experience that they're having, they're releasing all of the stuck energy in their body, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're giving that trapped energy, that trapped emotion and trauma an outlet to actually express itself through the body. Just as an animal in the wild would shake off their stress after like a zebra runs from a line. Like we have that capacity. Like I watch my son do it all the time. His body is fully involved in the emotion.
Yawning is also another version of that.
Yeah, it's a good release as well. The body's sort of coming back into a parasympathetic
It's a good example because I'll tell you why I asked that is because obviously I do this stuff and I've been doing it for a long time, but I've got friends and people I know. It's like, come on, that ain't real. That's a bunch of bullshit. Like,
I get a few unfollows when I post it.
Like people literally think that it's set up and that it's fake.
Yeah.
it's absolutely incredible. I said, like, just try it for yourself, and then just kind of see. But that, I like your explanation of the shaking it off. Obviously, it's a slightly more extreme version because people have, if you use the animal kingdom as an example, they don't not shake it off for 20 years because they feel afraid of what the other antelopes are going to say, do they? Maybe if they did, they'd be having a full-on, cramping and more of a physical experience and emotional experience as well because they've held on to it for so long. But as humans, we have this, consciousness and these other paradigms that we hold on to things. And so when they're doing this first physical release, I remember the first time I did breath work with Alice, I bawled my eyes out like uncontrollably, like sobbed like I'd never sobbed before. It was actually so uncomfortable that I didn't do it again for like a while. It took a lot of courage to do it because it was just so uncomfortable. Do you find people come back? Do you feel like it takes courage to do this work?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people I admire them, like, for their courage as soon as they hit buy the ticket, because for a lot of people who come to an event, it's the first time they're doing it. They have no idea what they're getting into. They've seen a reel where people are highly emotional and experiencing something quite deep, and that curiosity has brought them here. So I admire the courage just to buy the ticket and show up.
Because some might say it's, a lot of men, we talked about this before, but the men, programmed psyche. A lot of men would say it's weak to cry, or it's weak to, like in the old paradigm, a lot of people are waking up to this fact, but you got some people say, well, no, you shouldn't cry in front of this person, but it's okay to cry in front of this person. So you're in a room of people who, some people cry, some people are releasing stuff, but they all feel safe because you've created this little safe space where everyone can feel supported. But it seems like, to me, it's the complete opposite of weakness because it takes so much courage to put yourself out. I think it was Brene Brown who said that the definition of courage is you can't have it without being vulnerable.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's the most courageous thing that you could ever do is to be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't like my job. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I can't do this anymore. It's the most courageous thing to say, hey, look, I'm not happy in this marriage. I don't want to necessarily get a divorce, but something's going to have to change and I can't do this anymore, or something like that. Or, hey, I don't know, I want to be this, I want to do that, without the shame and all the different things. Like, vulnerability is the most strong thing that you can do, and it's not weak.
No, not at all. I remember hearing something to extend on that, and I'm going to mess it up because I can't remember the quote, but I was speaking about the fact that if you like hide everything and bury everything and you don't want to be vulnerable, that's weak, because there's so many things the world could throw at you to trigger you and to throw you off. But if you're willing to open up, to expose all of that and to own all of that and to share it and to release it.
Which is hard.
Yeah. You're no longer vulnerable because you've integrated it, and that's strength. And it takes a lot of strength and courage for everyone who comes to those events to go, I'm going to go in. I'm going to feel something that I'm afraid to feel, that I don't want to feel. And that, for me, as a man, required more strength in me to do that than it did to go to the gym and bench press something. That was the easy thing to do. So that's a big part of this work. Like, are you willing to actually, like you said, get out of your head and into your body and feel what's there? Because if you don't, it comes out sideways.
It's like going back to the start of the podcast. You're going to get, life will find its way, whether it's through dis-ease, like Dave, unfortunately coming down with cancer, whether it's you getting sacked from your job. I'm sure plentiful of men have lost a relationship. We'll kind of close in a second on this. I think Carlos Rilla, who we're going to have on the podcast soon as well, he said to me, what's the worst thing that turned out to be the best thing? And, I think a lot of us label negative things, we label them. Everything that happens neutral, right? But we label it as either good or bad. But I think these sometimes, if there's a listener right now, they're going through a painful situation, like you said, it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just feedback.
It is, yeah.
And so I think this is a beautiful way to kind of close the space in that, there's no right time. There's no perfect situation. Quiet the mind, listen, take the next obvious step, and most importantly, be courageous. Otherwise, at some point, the pain will just keep coming and the universe will take over.
It will. It absolutely will. And that courage requires you to grab fear by the hand and jump. You won't find it until you jump.
Well, you're sitting here, true definition of that. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. I had an awesome time.
Same
I loved absolutely chatting about this, and I think a lot of people will listen to this, and really I hope that they'll feel enough viscerally from listening to this that they'll realize, okay, I can change, and I've got a bit more education on what I can do.
Yeah.
I've built my learning, and now it's just about practicing those skills. So, dude, thanks for coming on the
Thanks,
Make
man.
Men Great Again podcast. Thanks for your time, and look forward to potentially having you on in the future, and wishing you all the best with all adventures. As I said before, I'll drop Pat's stuff in the comments if you want to check him out. If you want to go to some of his events, he runs events mostly here in Australia, but then a couple times throughout the year he'll be doing the tours around the globe. So if you're somewhere else listening to this, definitely follow him on Insta. And awesome, thanks again, Pat.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Awesome, see you, buddy.
See ya.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you want to watch more, you know what to do. Click here, somewhere here. There'll be some videos. Watch the next episode, and I'll see you soon.